Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. I'm gonna do something a little different, a little solo stream. Haven't done one of these in quite some time, and I'm gonna take a look at a magazine that I have a lot of nostalgia for. This came out when I'm right in the middle of my teenage years. PS1, N64, Sega Saturn. Though I didn't play any of those, as we'll talk about when I start flipping through here. But yeah, this was a magazine that I subscribed to, actually paid money for. It's the only magazine subscription I believe that I ever had. So that was pretty awesome. And we'll just dive right on into this. So here we go. April 97 Ultra Game Players. Originally Game Players, they added the Ultra in around this time period. I didn't look at exact dates on it, but I picked a random one. I think last time I did an issue from 1998. So here we are. Look at the cover here. So N64, PlayStation, Saturn, and PC. Tomb Raider 2 is on the cover for this one. Hot N64 games. So this is when Ocarina of Time was due to come out. I think it was just titled Zelda 64 at the time. So we get Yoshi, Doom, and more. Tomb Raider 2 stated here, but Idios, I think I said that correctly, who was about to put this out, was also going to come out with a couple other games. Fighting Force, which I owned and played. We'll talk about that. And Ninja, not familiar with that as much. Of course, we get to 20 games for PlayStation: Lost World, Triple Play 98, Rage Racer, and Toshinden 3. So go ahead and flip. I don't remember this magazine being this expensive, but with it being $8, I want to say maybe this was the variation that came with the disc for your PC. So there were demos on there. I want to say it was $5 or $6, a couple dollars more. It got you the disc. We shall see. But flipping here, let me go ahead and make myself a little bit smaller here. Buy two Sega Saturn games. So we got our list to choose from here. And with the Saturn, my cousin owned a Sega Saturn. I did not. I always kind of looked at the Saturn, unfortunately, as just the lesser of the three. So obviously PS1 was probably my number one console, and then N64, close second. Played a lot of the wrestling games on N64. So aside from your Virtual Cop, which you could play, I want to believe the first one in arcade. Of course, you got your first Tomb Raider and a lot of these other titles here. Not too familiar with, obviously, sports games, and Daytona, of course. So you can buy two of these games and then get one of these games for free, which Sega did this a lot during the Saturn era, the Dreamcast era, a lot of bundles. I think when my cousin got his Sega Saturn for his birthday, I want to say this was one of the bundle packs, because I want to say he got Daytona, Virtual Cop, and maybe Virtual Fighter, I think, were the three games that were bundled with it. Could be wrong. Of course, we get another page here, which I noticed just briefly flipping through these as I was saving the images. Lots of advertisements in these magazines. I don't remember it being quite as many as we have here, but we get the first Turok game, which I played, never owned. I played because my friend Josh had the game, and I definitely remember the draw distance on that being very tiny. I think a lot of people remember this first game for the fog, and you would get that a lot with N64 games. I remember draw distances on a lot of those not so great. Cover story, of course, Tomb Raider. Let's zoom in a little more. So yes, the core design team from so Idios was the publisher, and I guess core design. I'll look at that because I think they really specify all of those things. Of course, win a bunch of stuff. They always had contests in this magazine, and this was the magazine that I know a lot of people went with Electronic Gaming Monthly and GamePro, Nintendo Power. I always preferred the humor in these from their team, which I think in the next couple pages we'll actually get to see who all worked on those. So we have our topics, previews, reviews, sports line, because they had to have their own little sports section, all access, which I think is their like codes and cheats. If I remember, we will see. But this is issue 96, which I need to backtrack next time I come on here and talk about Ultra Game Players magazine, and we flip through and read through some of this stuff. I'll try to pinpoint exactly when they went from Game Players to Ultra Game Players, because Ultra Game Players didn't last that long either. A couple of years, and then I think they changed the name to Game Buyer at some point in 1999. And at that point, I had already checked out from the magazine because a lot of the team had left at that point. Here we go. Yes. So we got our special reports, first looks, game reviews, codes and strategies is what we have there. Turok, Doom 64. You see down here Mech Warrior, which is a series that is pretty much still kind of ongoing. And once again, another advertisement, hot soundtrack featuring TVT recording artist Gravity Kills. I was never big into any of these games. Test Drive Off-Road. Graphically, it looks pretty good, and that's sort of the thing about this time period too of games for me. As much nostalgia as I have for the magazines, the games themselves, not so much. There's a handful of them, but the early days of polygons, some of this stuff looks kind of rough. Playing it all these years later, so my preference in terms of games that really hold up for me is Super Nintendo era. Pixel art will withstand the test of time. I know some people will disagree and say, N64 is the best, but graphically, N64, for the most part, doesn't hold up. So here's the team. Chris Slate was here for quite some time, but by the time I got my subscription and really got into this, Chris would leave, and I think he went on to go to PlayStation Magazine. So we have Chris Slate. We have Roger, who was the big Sega Saturn guy. He was the big Sega mark of the team. So most of the reviews that would Saturn games in a positive light came from Roger. Mike is the sports guy. Bill was kind of all over the place. And as you can see here, it's kind of where a gist of the humor comes from. And then new guy, I don't know who this ended up being overall, because like I said, they gradually started rotating some more. But Roger, Mike, and Bill were the ones that stuck with it. When Chris Slate would leave, I'm trying to remember, Frank O'Connor, I think, became the editor-in-chief, who I think most people would know now worked with Bungie and then later 343. Very involved in Halo. That's his claim to fame, but I remember him from Ultra Game Players starting. He's a Scottish guy. He would always talk about haggis. We have some other people here that are directors and stuff I'm not as familiar with. You got to think too, 97, we're looking at pretty early days of internet for most people out there, myself included. This is around the time dial-up. I think 97 was when I first got internet. So this was kind of a big deal. I never got the price point to get the demo disc, but my friend did. So he would let me borrow them when he would be done with them. So this is what is on here for this one. Final Fantasy VII is kind of the biggest thing for a lot of the issues that would go on past this point, because Final Fantasy VII, we're looking here in April, that would release in a couple months. I remember playing it for the first time in August that year because I had to put it on layaway and just use my allowance to save up and gradually pay that off and get that out of there. But playable demos on here. Enemy Nations, no recollection of that. Lords of the Realm 2, No, because most of this is PC gaming. Of course, Redneck Rampage I did play because first-person shooters, your Duke Nukems, your Dooms, your Quakes, your Hexens, all big around this time period. Robotron X, which Robotron I think would get a PS1. Robotron X, I want to say, did get a PS1 port and an N64 port, but this was also around the time they were updating all of these older Atari games to try to make them cool. And those games are right, but I unfortunately didn't get to play them that much. I've just seen Robotron from other people playing it, and that actually looks like a blast to play. So I need to find a copy or emulate the game and check that out. XCar, no idea. And then, of course, when you have PC, you got to have Mac, and Mac would always get the shit end of the stick when it came to gaming at the time. Most stuff wouldn't run on a Mac, and if it did, it was inferior to just having a regular PC. Video game movies, so around this time period, having just little clips of gameplay, or as we'll see here throughout the magazine, just screenshots of stuff, was not only a big deal in print, but also early days of IGN and GameSpot. Those are kind of the two heavy hitters that come to mind for me. There may have been other gaming websites around this time, but I primarily stuck with IGN and GameSpot here. So you can see this list: NBA Shootout, Final Fantasy VII, Doom 64, Grand Slam Baseball, Independence Day, which is featured in this magazine, I think, in a review. We'll talk about that when we get to it. But the demo discs were a lot of fun. This is when the crew you would see more of the crew and them actually talking about things and making fun of stuff, or just like the weird creative videos that they would make, because they would also include, if you subscribe to the magazine and got it mailed to you, there would be a newsletter that would come in and varying colored papers. So some months it would be blue, some months it'd be green or yellow, and it was just odd stuff, which is included in these scans that I have. So we will take a look at that down the road. Of course, we get to our topics. So this is kind of a lot of the news stuff that would be going on at the time. So Sega beds down with Bandai. Will this merger create a formidable force? Sega and Bandai have announced that the two companies will be merging their worldwide operations. And is this the power partner Sega needs? Or is this just a rash attempt at putting off the inevitable? So even then, they were talking about Saturn's not doing well. They're moving on to the next console, which I remember them teasing about with the Dreamcast coming up, probably in the 98 issues for sure. I'm trying to remember its code name. It was either something like Black Belt or Katana. One of those two, maybe. Trying to pull all of this from memory. My memory is gradually degrading, but yeah, I don't remember much with Sega and Bandai, because like I said, Sega pretty much has been off the radar for me during this time period, even as a kid. Genesis, I would only go and play at my friend's house. That's how I played 32X, and Sega CD was all through him. And I didn't get my own Sega console until Dreamcast came out, which unfortunately I wish that had gone on longer, because I graphically, I really love the Dreamcast. I love the games they had, their sports games specifically, their 2K series. Still going to this day, but when they first came out with that stuff, graphically and gameplay wise, blew everything else out of the water. What we got here? Yep, more Sega GameWorks, which this comes to the arcade stuff, and I remember they had all of those games. Here's your skiing game and snowboarding. I want to say they had a snowboarding, but definitely the skiing one I remember seeing in arcades and actually playing, and those were fun for what they were. With resources from Steven Spielberg, Sega, and MCA, the GameWorks Center in Seattle is sure to be something special. So I guess this is sort of the 30,000 square foot playground is full of microbrew bar, and an affordably trendy restaurant. Tack in some video games in there, you got yourself a good barcade. Excuse me. Some more stuff here. Ion Storm, which was founded by John Carmack, formerly of id Software, signed an exclusive worldwide publishing agreement with Eidos, the company's next title, which is an unnamed action RPG for PC based on the Quake engine, will be published by Eidos. Enix has announced that Dragon Quest VII will appear on the PlayStation, and not exclusively on the Nintendo 64 DD, which launched in Japan and didn't have much on it, but I remember them talking. Mario 64 2 will be on the Nintendo 64 DD, so it's going to be like this disk drive, and Zelda was planned to be part of that too. And I scaled everything back. I can't remember exactly all the stuff that led to it, but we didn't get the 64 DD here. That was just kind of a way of extending the lifespan of the console, more or less, if I remember correctly. Acclaim announced that it's lost $19 million for its first fiscal quarter. So Acclaim would not be around for too much longer after this one. Yeah, they would go into kind of the early to mid 2000s, and then I think that was about it for Acclaim, which I think they're making a comeback somehow too. Where is Sega going? Can Sega Saturn still excel in the next generation console wars? So here's the doubt involved with this, because they really dropped the ball. The Genesis for a while was more popular than the Super Nintendo, and then once you have the combination of Sega CD, 32X, and I think when 32X launches not long after that, they do the Saturn, and when they announce the Saturn, it's E3. It's out in stores now and totally throws everyone off, and the price point, not great. PS2 is about to come out. It's going to have a DVD drive. DVDs, of course, big selling point for most console buyers around this time, because it's sort of your 2-in-1. And I guess it still applies now, because when I got the PS5, I'm looking at it, I can play 4K Blu-ray. So if I buy any of those, I can play them on there. So I think that's a big selling point to have, especially around this time too. Final Fantasy VII is finally out. Well, in Japan at least, because they would get the RPGs and have those out, and then we would get them a couple months later, sometimes a year later, around this time. So it is out now in Japan. I want to say maybe June is when it launched here in the States. Someone can correct me on that, but I remember getting it in August, so maybe I laid it away when it came out in June and then got it out in August. I can't remember, but everyone's standing in line waiting for it. Japanese gamers were up by 6 a.m. to make sure they got their copy of Final Fantasy VII, even with over 1.5 million pre-orders. There were still massive lines at stores. Stores opened up 2 hours early to accommodate the lines, but for the most part, everyone got their copy of Final Fantasy VII. Stunning graphics are only part of the reason for Final Fantasy VII's success. So no midnight releases here, but I miss this. I miss the hype of waiting in line, either having a pre-order or not, waiting in line, ready to get the game. I miss times like that. Let's read this bit here. This time around, Square made a deal with Digicube in which consumers could pre-order their copy of Final Fantasy VII and pick it up at any 7-Eleven. The sales through the convenience stores were already 1.5 million after 2 days, accounting for 75% of total sales, but that didn't stop the line. So it's badass that they can just go to 7-Eleven and pre-order it as well. Final Fantasy VII. What a formidable RPG that was for me at the time, because I didn't really dabble much in that genre, and I would watch friends play other RPGs and be like, oh, that's kind of okay. But Final Fantasy VII is the one that kind of roped me in and opened my eyes to the genre. And it's one that I still play off and on to this day. It depends on the game, but most of them, PS1 era is kind of what I prefer. I do enjoy the turn-based RPGs as opposed to kind of that hybrid that they have now. they're fine, but there's something about the turn-based for me. We got some more stuff down here. I won't read too much of it. Electronic Arts, EA, Andretti Racing, Madden 97, Gex 3D. A lot of people played. The Spider that's also an Exterminator in it today. Never played this, but it seems just from the flyer pretty interesting. More Final Fantasy VII continued from the article. What's the fuss? The new screenshot should be sufficient evidence to explain why the Japanese gaming community went so insane with the release of Final Fantasy VII. 3 discs. That was kind of the thing, too. It's like, oh, man, 3 discs. And then I want to say maybe when 8 and 9 came out, they were 4. And you're just like, holy shit, 4 discs? This is going to take forever to beat. It was always cool when it says insert disc 2. You're like, oh, I'm really making progress in this game. I think when my friend and I, because we would I would take my save over and we'd play my save, and then we would swap over to his save and back and forth, back and forth. I think overall, probably put a good 40 to 50 hours into this to beat the game. I think maybe a little bit longer. Because there's a lot of backtracking, a little bit of grinding, because, of course, with these older RPGs, the grind is part of the game. And then you get the strategy guide. Turns out you missed a character. Here's the ultimate weapon, or here's a piece of gear that you really want to go back and get, kind of thing. So lots of backtracking. More news down here that I won't read, but let's kind of take a look here. It's 8 legs and heavily armed. Let's look at this spider game. Trapped in the body of a cyborg spider, creeping down drain pipes, going through ceilings, wandering through. Man, BMG Interactive, Boss Game Studios. I don't think this would have been a game that I ever would have rented back then. But concept seems kind of cool. I'd probably never play it, though. They would always do this. You get some gear, so we got one of your kind of flight sticks that a lot of people would use to play first-person shooters. You get your light guns here, which was kind of the cheap alternative. You know, if you're wanting to play Virtual Cop or, I don't know, Area 51 or any of those light gun games, but you didn't, especially, let's see, Time Crisis 2 is another example, because that would come, Namco would bundle that sometimes with the gun. That could be kind of pricey, or just to buy that by itself, a little expensive. So you get these alternatives, and of course they give you your ratings. I don't know if this is out of 4 stars or out of 5, but oh wait, here we go. My bad. We have our rating key up here. I should have paid attention to that. So premium is 3 stars. So it seems both of these products are pretty decent. I never owned, because I didn't do PC stuff, and I wasn't much into the light gun games back then. Like, you would play Duck Hunt and stuff, you had a Nintendo, but when it came to flight sticks, any of those things, I never, just regular controllers for me. Though I take that back, because when I did get my PS1 for Christmas, I got Space Jam, Game Day, maybe it's just a original Game Day. I don't think it had a year attached to it. So it may have just been NFL Game Day. Twisted Metal 2. And then my dad had bought, I can't remember the brand. I want to say maybe it was Mad Catz, but a racing wheel. And it worked okay. But it's just one of those things, much like all this stuff accessory-wise, half of it was junk and wasn't as responsive. You may as well choose the controller, but fun sometimes, just to fiddle around with and mess around, but not for too long. Broken Helix. This comes from Konami. I think I remember seeing this game on shelves, but never rented it, never played it. It looks like first person, and with Konami, I mean, just guys, like these graphics, looked amazing at the time, but look at him now. The Highway Patrol of the FBI is most wanted. So we have Need for Speed 2, which I want to say I rented this, but because racing games I would dabble in. I think Hot Pursuit is one that I owned. I own one of these PS1 Need for Speed games, but I can't remember exactly which one it is. I don't think it's 2 though. Wiretap, sequel to Diablo in the works. Guess what? Diablo 2 may already be in the design stages. So we're getting from Diablo 1. Diablo 2, I'm sure you could probably go to some Walmart right now and find Diablo 2 physical edition on PC somewhere. But yeah, I didn't play the first Diablo. Diablo 2, I played a little bit back in the day. I actually bought, because they remastered this and put it out on consoles, and it plays pretty similar to how you have with Diablo 3 and Diablo 4 now. Obviously, of course, things have changed drastically between part 2 and jumping into part 3 gameplay wise. So there's a little bit to get used to there, but Diablo is always fun. I really enjoy the action RPGs. Tomb Raider 2 to offer different play modes. I only played the first Tomb Raider. Own it, beat it, and mostly because I think at the end of 90, maybe no, it was 96. It would have to be. It's got to be the holiday 96, January 97 issue. They had the strategy guide in this magazine for the first Tomb Raider, and that's what I used to beat it. Sega to lay off personnel, yeah, because if no one's buying the console and you're having to constantly reduce prices and everything, you're gonna lose out on that, and inevitably maybe have to lay off some people. New quad CD for PlayStation. One rumor that has been circulating for nearly 2 months now is that a new version of the PlayStation, not PlayStation 2, but PlayStation 1.5, the new revision supposedly replaces the double speed CD mechanism with quad speed drive. This, I don't know, between the time period that I got my PS1 and this article here, if there's a stage there, if it ended up being the sort of the smaller PS1 that then changed everything, that I am unsure of. What we got here, Swagman, another one from Adios Interactive. No recollection of this, but graphically, this honestly looks more like something that would be on the Saturn than the PS1. Because the PS1 had this, but Saturn kind of had a lot of these 2.5D or 2D side-scrolling platformers. But at the time, I brushed all those off to the side because I'm like, that's old graphics. What an idiot. What an idiot I was back at the time. But no recollection of Swagman. So here we go. Tomb Raider 2, Ninja and Fighting Force, Core's Encore. Last year's hottest developers back and packing serious heat. So Tomb Raider 1 kind of being so successful blew open the doors for them to do all of these other games. And once again, Tomb Raider 2, unfortunately not something I wanted to play it. I don't know why I never got around to wanting to play it. Maybe I just lost interest by the time it came out because graphically it was superior, gameplay a little bit better too. But maybe I just didn't want any more Tomb Raider in my life. Ninja, I wish I remembered if it came out. I want to say that this did end up coming out, but I don't remember anything about it. And I don't even think I was hyped for this at the time. But let's get past the Ninja stuff. Fighting Force, however, was something that I was very interested in. Got it when it came out, and I've heard that this is pretty much Streets of Rage, like a Streets of Rage sequel, but just not by name. But they're saying Final Fight style game, which maybe that was part of it too. Just reading this and being like, "Oh, Final Fight! I love Final Fight as a kid. Oh, this is 3D and it's like a Die Hard Arcade, which I think is also talked about in this issue. But I love this game. A lot of people, for whatever reason, I guess, don't. But it's got co-op in it. I think. I only played it solo. I want to say it's got co-op though. Maybe it doesn't, but it to me it was very much like Die Hard Arcade. Especially, yeah, you just sort of look at it here, and then how items had the circle around it, very reminiscent of Die Hard Arcade. So I had to get this when it came out. Get some more screenshots. We get a Q&A kind of talking about everything. The Double Dragon Final Fight type games have been overdone in the past. What are you bringing to the genre to make the game different? Our game uses a full 3D environment, not a flat 2D plane. So see, around this time, the biggest thing is it's 3D. That 2D stuff, that's old, man. That's in the past. The players are not limited to fighting one enemy at a time, but can attack as many as 4 through the use of special moves. The players can also walk, fight in any direction. Yeah, it had branching paths, if I remember correctly. So it gave you options. This is a game I have not played in 25 years. So I would like to see if I can get past tank controls and play this and see if I still enjoy it at all. So maybe PS1 emulator, play some of that stuff for a stream. Advertisement here for Scud. Scud's a game. I mean, it was Saturn and PC, so this is obviously you wouldn't have played it. Here are our previews. Lots of good stuff going on here. We'll get to The Lost World. I take that back. This is not a good game. I think I always saw this in demo form. I just had no interest in a quasi side-scrolling dinosaur game. And I watched the movie, and even then, back then, I'm like, this movie's not that good. But yeah, no interest in this. Like, concept's kind of cool, I suppose, but just I like this. Finally, a movie game that's worthy of its license, because there's a lot of terrible shit movie games, which we're gonna have a couple more of those in this issue, I believe. So Zelda 64, this has become Ocarina of Time. Fourth quarter release, 64 DD or not to be, that is the question. Besides being one of the most anticipated games in history, Zelda 64 is intriguing because of the format it will come on. Originally, Nintendo announced that Zelda 64 would showcase the infinite powers of the 64 DD add-on. Since then, rumors have been circulating that the game would be a cart, and it ended up being a cart. But what a great game this is, too. A lot of fun with this. My friend Josh played the shit out of this game. So a lot of it was spent watching him because he got the game for his birthday in early November. And I had a copy waiting for me for Christmas, so I had to wait. But I would sit and watch him. I would dabble when he would hand me the controller and play strategy guide. It was a good way to watch him play, read through the strategy guide, and then when I got the game, I could breeze through a lot of the parts that he had trouble with. So still holds up too. I played, I think the last time I played Ocarina of Time was like 10 years ago, and still holds up. A lot of the N64 controls, if it wasn't first party Nintendo game, kind of iffy on whether it would control well or not, but usually like your Mario's, Zelda's. I mean, Rare was pretty good at this too with Banjo-Kazooie. GoldenEye was pretty good in hindsight, looking back at that control-wise for its time. Obviously, too used to the dual sticks now for first-person shooters, but yeah, Ocarina of Time. It's just fun. I love this stuff too. It doesn't have the full title yet. It's just Zelda 64. What a time. And graphically, like, yeah, you look at it now and I don't know, this still looks pretty good to me. Better than most. We get a coupon here. Save $10 when you purchase Mech Warrior 2 for PlayStation Game Console at KB Toys. And they would do this a lot. You would get advertisements that would have coupons. You can go to KB or take it to Kmart, because I think it was like $15 off of Game Day 98 at Kmart with a coupon from this magazine. Overblood for PlayStation from EA. No recollection of this one. Overblood is a sci-fi adventure that combines the crisp look of Resident Evil and the real-time 3D world of Tomb Raider for a stunning look. So you kind of, once you get other games that are successful, then people like EA and Konami start putting out, I don't want to call them copycats, but kind of having that same mindset of, all right, well, let's make our Resident Evil. I guess it is sort of copycat, but yeah, they still do that to this day. Any genre that kind of picks up steam. I remember MOBAs were really big there for a hot minute, and then seemed like everything was a MOBA. And now the big thing is like your battle royale stuff, right? So Fortnite really set that into motion, and now it seems all of those, your Call of Duties, Battlefield attempted it and failed miserably. Just anything to catch the hype, and some of them have been very successful and kind of leapfrogged the one that initiated the trend to begin with. So no harm in trying to do that. It's Battle Arena Toshinden 3. So the first game I want to say was a launch title, or close to launch, for PS1. So now we're up to Battle Arena Toshinden 3, which I think I only played some of 2. Because when it came to fighting games on PS1, Tekken was my go-to franchise. Remember getting the greatest hits, buying Tekken 3 new at the beach, but then by that point, Tekken 1 and Tekken 2 had already been discounted in that greatest hits category. So I just bought all 3, and we played shit out of those while we were at the beach. When we're not at the beach or going to restaurants or in the pool or the hot tub, we're in the room playing PS1. And a lot of the mini game stuff in that was a lot of fun. The beach ball game, I think that one was in 3. Pretty sure it was 3. Yeah, that was 2. The beach ball game was amazing. That was a lot of fun to play against someone else. Clay Fighter 63 and a third. Never played this on N64. Played the first Clay Fighter, and that was kind of enough. The novelty by this point had really worn off. I appreciated its claymation style graphics, but gameplay-wise, compared to everything else, your Street Fighters, your Mortal Kombats at the time, that this couldn't hold a candle to any of that. What do we got here? Konami Arcade Classics Come Home. So some of it, like 90s as hell advertisements. Got your rollerblades, got your pizza, got your fisheye lens. So what do we have here on this? Lethal Enforcers 1 and 2. So yeah, this goes back to remember the Justifier only works on PlayStation games. So this would have maybe have come bundled with this too, or sold separately. Maybe it says it down at the bottom in the small print. This may have come bundled. Oh, Crypt Killer too. Yeah. Lethal Enforcers 1 and 2. So Lethal Enforcers, the first one, I remember playing in arcade every now and again just for shits and giggles. I think the local Walmart had that. So when your options are limited arcade games and you got to play something, this is how you end up playing stuff like this. But I like gun games. That's kind of a genre that I guess wouldn't be too suitable these days unless you're putting it on the Switch or something, or I guess you could do a Time Crisis. Also, I don't know how well they work with TVs these days or what they would do to finagle that to make it work better. Maybe it would just be like Wii controls and not really, I don't know. Have to be something. But I don't know. Novelty of that maybe it wouldn't work so well in modern times. I don't know. Leave a comment down below. Let me know. Also, I haven't checked the chat yet. I assume most of it's just Fedmon. Oh, hey, James is here too. I never got into the 3D fighting games. That's understandable. It is, but Tekken was where it was at for me. Dynasty Warriors. So this is before it turned into what it is now, like these grand scale hack and slash games. So before it used to just be another fighting game. So this is a fun little piece. I guess I don't know. Maybe after this is when it starts to go in that direction. What we know now with Dynasty Warriors. This is fun, and to think too the technology that how they had to go about getting these screen grabs at the time, because it wasn't like it is these days where you can just print screen on stuff and crop it and whatever. That's why some of these look the way that they do. I think they actually had to take pictures and then develop the film. Maybe not for some publications, but I know that had happened a lot of time, especially at GameSpot. You talked about that before, that it was fighting to get the first screenshot of a game before anyone else did, kind of have that exclusive. What a time. Baseball advertisement here. You can almost smell the freshly cut grass, the hot dogs, the pine tar. So we got the Giants playing the Expos right here. What game is this? Slow reveal. I think this may have been a game that I may have rented as well. Unprecedented Control, says EGM. The most realistic gameplay ever. Virgin Interactive, so it probably wasn't good at all. We got John Smoltz there. Yeah, Grand Slam. I remember renting this and wasn't impressed because I was a big baseball fan around this time period. So any of the baseball games that would come out, I was there for. I would go and rent them. I was thinking about this earlier today before I was going to stream. Like, why did I do that so much? Because if I found one that I liked, I could just stick with that or buy the game and just play that. And I have my favorites, of course, but just any other ones, I always rented them. Like, whoa, how's this look? What's this going to play like? And I remember Grand Slam not being that great. Up next, we get a pair of 64 games. So Star Fox 64. I'm kind of curious. Maybe I'll skim through this and see if they mention it. Yes. Last paragraph of the preview. Star Fox 64 is also said to feature a multiplayer mode where up to 4 players can duel against one another in the R-Wing fighter bombers to determine who is the best pilot. And an added attraction is that the game will work with Nintendo's Force Pack, formerly known as the Jolt Pack, which would get renamed again to the Rumble Pack, to give the player force feedback sensations when firing and being hit. I had a Rumble Pack. I bought it separately. You could get it bundled with Star Fox when it came out. That was the biggest selling point for that. I wasn't big into Star Fox at the time at all. Like, I didn't enjoy the Super Nintendo version. I appreciate it now for what it was doing graphically at the time. And Star Fox 64, playing it years later and getting a copy of it, I really enjoy that game, but I didn't get it back then. I bought my dad bought me a Rumble Pack, and let me tell you, it's much like having a steering wheel or any of the other accessories. It's fun for a brief amount of time. The novelty wears off, and it made the controller really, really heavy. Like, it would just weigh down. And I guess if you want like a good arm exercise, if you didn't have it sitting in your lap, that would be a good way to just work on your arms, because it really added a good chunk of weight to it. I at this time I didn't like the rumble stuff, and then when they implemented it just into the controllers themselves moving forward with the DualShock, and then you got used to it. But at the time, much like any like wireless controllers, I remember when 360 was doing that, and I'm like, man, I love the freedom of it, but at the same time, I was like, oh, but the chord, and it's just things that seem shitty at the time because you don't quite, it's new and you don't understand it. And then once you get used to it and it's implemented, then you don't ever really think about it again. But the Rumble Pack, it definitely packed a jolt, and it weighed way too much. Yoshi's Island 64. Didn't play this. I think this ended up kind of releasing a little bit later, at the point to where the only N64 games I was really playing were the Aki wrestling games. And one of those things that just didn't, the Yoshi being the protagonist never appealed to me. I didn't like Super Mario World 2. I think that annoyed a lot of people. You have Baby Mario, you get hit, the baby flies in the air, wow, all that stuff. I mean, graphically, this looks. I love the style of this game, and I guess I could go play it because it's on the Virtual Console now on the Switch. So maybe this is a game I'll finally get around to playing, because I'm sure it plays well. It's a first-party Nintendo game at this point. They pretty much knocked it out of the park for most of the games that would come out. But I was playing wrestling stuff. PS2 was right around the corner. I moved pretty quickly on. If I wasn't playing a wrestling game, I wasn't playing much else, I don't think, around this time. Maybe like Final Fantasy VII and stuff. Blast Corps. This game's fun, but I tired of it quickly. Novelty of it wore off kind of fast for me, because you're kind of doing the same thing over and over again, just in different scenarios. It didn't do much for me. I think this is also, maybe I could be wrong, but I think this is also on the Virtual Console on Switch. Either that or it's on the Rare Games Collection, which I have on Xbox One, but my Xbox One is, I no longer have that plugged up because I stopped buying games for it, and it just turned into a streaming machine. And then I bought a Roku, and that kind of took the place of said streaming machine. So I went ahead and retired that, and I haven't jumped into the Series X or Series S. Which one's the superior one? Series X? I think it's Series X. I haven't got that because I have the PS5, and I just don't need both consoles. Xbox these days, most of their exclusives that they've had in a couple months end up coming to PS5. So I would definitely say if you had to pick a winner from this generation's console, probably be PlayStation. I see Xbox maybe coming out with one more console, and then I think they're done, because we're reaching a point where it's essentially just either you get a gaming PC or you have that, and they have like the Game Pass, which just kind of intertwines with this. Like, I get Game Pass for the PC and play most Xbox games, so why do I need an Xbox? Advertisement here for, I think it multi-page here, and then we get the big one. It's Big Hurt Baseball, or All-Star 1997 featuring Frank Thomas. So I guess this is the sequel to Big Hurt Baseball. My cousin had Big Hurt Baseball on the Saturn. I remember it not being that great. Advertisement, Battle Arena to Shenden 3. Always liked their advertising art. I always thought the box art looked really cool, but gameplay-wise just didn't stand up to Tekken for me. Rebellion. Got some Star Wars here. Star Wars games. I think there's an advertisement for one that I do own, but I got that secondhand at a yard sale, and that was pretty cool. But no recollection of Rebellion, and it came out on PC, and I didn't have a proper. When I say proper, I mean a computer that could run PC games halfway decent until, oh man, probably mid to late '98. And even then, I was just playing Duke Nukem and Redneck Rampage and is it Shadow Ninja? It was a lot of the first person stuff at the time, because we were big into the first person games, especially Duke Nukem, because it was crass. You could get the expansion, create your own levels and everything, and we like recreated I say we, but my friend Josh was the brains and the artist behind it. He recreated our high school pretty much in its entirety in the Duke 3D engine, and then um, he made like our local civic center, and it was having a wrestling event. So he was very talented in that kind of shit. I was not. I was more of the idea man for him. Hexen 64. Hexen 64, I rented and played. And when you compare it to your Quakes and Duke Nukems and Dooms, I put Hexen towards the bottom of the list. What does it say here? Originally a popular title on PC, Hexen now heads home to Nintendo 64. While I have some fierce competition from Doom, Hexen seems to provide enough little extras to hold its own. I don't know why I didn't really get as much into Hexen. I guess I just preferred the creatures and everything from Doom. I mean, looking back at it now, like they're fine, but you're just like, it's not Doom. It's not the pig cops from Duke Nukem looking around. Wild Arms. Wild Arms is something around this time. Final Fantasy VII. I was obviously playing. Wild Arms, however, was something I didn't get into, but the first 3 games are available digitally on PS5, and I thought about just buying them all and gradually just playing through them because I would like to play these. I would see advertisements for this game and the second game all the time in these magazines, and I was like, that seems kind of cool. I just never got around to it, and most of the time, renting games back then was more about what can I play in a weekend? What can I beat in a weekend? A lot of these RPGs I wasn't willing to start and then have to return because I could only rent stuff on the weekends. Weekdays, unless it was like Christmas break or spring break or like 3-day weekends, whether they would have teacher work days or whatever. No renting games on weekdays. It was only weekends. So I never wanted to commit the time to start this, have to return it, and then not know if it would be there the following weekend. Because most of the time, take a drink of water here. I didn't have a Blockbuster locally near me at all. So all the places I had to rent from, movies, they would have multiple copies of. Video games, very rarely would they have more than one copy of it. So I didn't want to take the risk, but this is something that I would really like to go and play. I was actually looking at footage of Wild Arms 3 on PS2, and I was like, that looks like something I could really sink my teeth into. But obviously, I would start at the beginning and then gradually work my way to 3. A lot of advertising for this All-Star 97 featuring Frank Thomas. Let's look at the graphics here. Yeah, those look okay. Very, very reminiscent of your Final Fantasy VII. And I feel dumb now for just not getting more of this stuff as opposed to what I did buy or end up getting like greatest hits of or whatever. I really missed out on a lot of good stuff, especially on the Saturn. There's a lot of good stuff on there. Broken Helix. We saw the advertisement for this earlier. Konami, the good, the bad, and the foul-mouthed. Simply put, dialogue takes up a lot of memory, and the cartridge formats of systems like the Genesis, Super NES, and N64 don't have room to accommodate it. CD-ROM, on the other hand, has different issues, and the developers of Broken Helix are seemingly the first team to recognize the potential of this kind of work. Yeah, I can just feel the tank controls in this one. That was the kind of the biggest put off of a good chunk of PS1 games, trying to go back and play them. It's just the tank controls are terrible. Get shafted for the last time. Yeah, so you get a lot of the innuendo advertisements in the magazines. So this is Descent Maximum from Interplay. Yeah, this was also a big genre, cockpit view of games, much like Mech Warrior, and there would be other shit that would come out on like 3DO and CDI and everything. They had cockpit view flying around. Theme Hospital. Oh boy. So Electronic Arts PC CD-ROM. Just looking at this on the onset, this seems like something that led into the development of The Sims a couple years down the road. Because EA would also publish that. Might be wrong, but Theme Hospital, a lot of this stuff, like your Roller Coaster Tycoon. Roller Coaster Tycoon was fun. The novelty is pretty cool there, and you get a decent amount of playtime for these. But something like Theme Hospital, no thanks. There would have been no interest for me back then. Not much interest now, unless you're just going to be crazy and just never have patients that walk out of your hospital or something. Brahma Force, the Assault on Belt Logger 9, coming soon to PlayStation. Nope. No recollection there. Vandal Hearts from Konami. If you don't use your head, someone else might. We have here 3D isometric battlefields, classic RPG combat, 3D magic and spells. Something I don't remember, but kind of looking at the art here. When it's saying classic RPG format, but then you're having isometric battlefields, is this kind of more of a using a strategic combination of wits, muscle, and magic? It's an epic confrontation that unfolds. So is this more just like a tactical RPG as opposed to traditional? Might be where it's at. I know nothing of Vandal Hearts, but this kind of intrigues me a little bit. But to look more into that. Top Gear Rally for N64. Seem to remember this game having very floaty controls. A lot of these racing games on N64 did. I think a lot of people, Beetle Adventure Racing is one that people really, really enjoy. And I never played that one. This may have been one that I rented and didn't enjoy too much. There's one of these games is very, very, very floaty controls. Like you barely move the stick and you're off the road. I think the biggest offensive racing game on N64 for me personally was Cruis'n USA, because I really liked the arcade. I played the arcade a lot because that was a mainstay at the local Walmart for quite some time. I'd always pick the school bus for whatever reason and drive that around. But when it got ported to 64, I went to my friend Josh's house because he, once again, got the console for his birthday not long after launch, if I remember correctly. And Cruis'n USA was one of those first. Don't think it was launch. It may have been launch, or it may have come out very soon after launch. And just the disappointment of it. It was zoomed out more. It sounded like shit. And obviously, I knew that it wasn't going to be exactly like the arcade, but I was expecting so much more from that. But I remember this one not being that great either. Release list. So I think after this page and the next, I think they get into the reviews. So April, Blast Corps. See if there's anything. Castlevania Bloodlines coming out for PlayStation. MVP Baseball. Golden Nugget. This was kind of like your parents' game. They would Caesar's Palace, Golden Nugget, all of the gambling games. Like my dad would play that stuff. So I'd get older. Let's see, what else do we have here that really, really sticks out to me? Bomberman, even though this is the Saturn version, do love me some Bomberman. Tecmo Super Bowl on Saturn. Kind of curious what that would have looked like. Dark Rift, Hexen, and Robotron X. So yes, I think Robotron X is the one I remember on 64. I remember seeing people play, and I would like to track down a copy of that because that game looks a lot of fun. Looks like a lot of fun. I should probably just emulate everything. I have the consoles, but just the idea of going down to the basement, putting the cartridge in there, turning everything on, probably have to replug it up because I think I have like the PS2 and Xbox hooked to the hookups in the back. And there's a hookup up front that I swap like the GameCube, 64, and Super Nintendo, which I love that you could just use those same hookups for those three consoles. Is pretty much the same exact ports and everything in the back. That was great. Marvel Superheroes on PlayStation. Those Capcom Marvel fighting games Loved playing those. So Wild Arms is going to come out in May. Dragon Slayer 2. GoldenEye slated for June. I know a lot of this stuff would change because I remember there would be things that I would look forward to and I would see it on the list. Be like, oh, it's coming out at this time. And then that date would come. I would check every Friday when I would go to my local Walmart, or anytime I went to the mall, like Software, KB, I'm always looking to see if the game's there. And I'd be like, where is it? Ultra Game Players said it was coming out on this date or this month. And I wouldn't know that stuff would keep getting pushed back, which, by the way, for anyone here in the States that went to Walmart to purchase your games, do you remember around this time, they didn't have the see-through cases to where you can look and actually see that they had the game in stock? They just had, it was like a gray, it was either gray or red plastic door that they would have to come unlock and then open it. And then you would see all the games just like scattered in there and you would have to look and find it. But, oh, yes, this one. Gosh, that was so nerve-wracking because you would see the little plastic pamphlet thing they had hanging up. It's much like Toys R Us with the tickets. But you would just see that, just be like, it's here. And then you open the door and they don't have the game. So then you got to go to other Walmart stores, or if your parents were more than willing to drive you the extra little bit, and you can go to the mall and go to a proper game store or KB and see that they have the game. Stressful stuff. So it was only one page. Okay, so it stretches from April to July. So that's good that it only covers a few months and doesn't expand past that point, because I'm sure if they wanted to, they could include September, October in there. Man. Pinky and the Brain came out on PlayStation from Konami. Oh, Mortal Kombat 2. How about that? K1, the Arena Fighters. So this is like your kickboxing games. Stunning 3D, 2D arenas, 4 fighting modes, 1 player versus tournament and team battle. No interest in this stuff. It had to be wrestling or just like Tekken or Mortal Kombat or something. Crime Wave on the Saturn. Don't remember anything about this either. It almost seems like a Twisted Metal ripoff to a degree. Fire up one of 8 heavily armed vehicles and bust through 8 zones of digitized devastation. Use guns, grenades, rocket launchers, and titras, whatever it takes. After all, you don't get paid for being nice. Here are our reviews. If you guys want to take a look, Die Hard Arcade is in there. Doom 64, Independence Day. Wait, do they actually? So the one thing about it is their rating system, which when you compare it to GamePro separate categories, which they also do, but it's so weird when you look at it. So we have 10 is extraordinary, 9 to 9.9 is ultra, 8 to 8.9 very good, 7 to 7.9 good, 6 to 6.9 average, 5 to 5.9 lacking. Usually, much like today, once you get past the 7 threshold, if a game gets lower than that, you probably don't want to buy it unless it's very cheap. 4 to 4.9 seriously flawed, and 0 to 3.9 unforgivable. And here are the categories they break everything into. And I personally think that it's too much stuff. You have graphics, music, sound effects, like interaction, balance, depth, extras, presentation, innovation, and then everything is weighted in each category. Like graphics are weighted by 4, music by 2, sound effects by 2. The total sum of all those categories and then divided by 23. It's just so convoluted. And I guess when I looked at it, I'm like, oh, they really know what they're talking about. They have so many categories and everything is calculated. They got to know what they're talking about. So we have Turok. I won't read the whole thing, but I'm kind of curious if there's anything in here about its draw distance. It's one of the first hardcore action games for N64. Turok Dinosaur Hunter says quite a bit for the future of the system. The environments are big and beautiful, though they do suffer from a limited texture palette. And the polygonal enemies are finely detailed and nicely animated. Also, the visual effects used to represent the many impressive weapons in the game are nothing short of spectacular. The exploding arrows alone are reason enough to set out with the goal of blowing some things up. Do they talk about it? A thick and obstructing fog hangs just beyond the foreground throughout the game, but what does show up is always pretty and oftentimes gorgeous. I think even back then I wasn't blown away by that. I think I saw it and I didn't see it so much as a limitation. I was just like, why is it so foggy here? The game was okay. It was kind of easy to get lost a little bit, but it does have the map here, which I stupidly never really used much, if I'm being honest, playing it. But my friend had this. I didn't own this game. He had it, and I would play it there, and that was about the extent of it. I love the blood effects in it. The splattering and the explosions were cool for the time. So this gets a 2-page spread because I guess it's the biggest game for the reviews here. And what would come to later on for the console when you think about it in terms of first-person shooters, like GoldenEye was a heavy hitter, and then you would get Perfect Dark. Doom, they would come out with a Duke Nukem 3D, and the biggest selling point for those was the 4-player multiplayer, which this didn't have, but they give it an 8.3, so that's pretty solid. Definitely, if my friend didn't get this when it came out, I would have rented it for sure. Get another advertisement. Don't worry about your mama. I'll take you to school. Is this yep. NBA Shootout 97. I think Tyler has fond memories of either this one or NBA Shootout 98. So that would have been one of his go-to games. He loved playing basketball games on his consoles. He also liked playing Tekken as well. So I may butcher this. Is it a mock? A mock? I'm going to go with a mock. This is on the Saturn. After a couple years of development, is this title worth the wait? Yep, another 3D shooter here. Looks kind of okay. Also like, too, that they give you alternatives, so something very similar in that regard. I don't know. Let's go back to Turok and see what they had for similar. All right. Mario 64, I don't think is similar to Turok. Tomb Raider, you can kind of grasping at straws on that. They probably grasp at straws on all these, but it gets a 6.4. So maybe worthy of a rental, but it's probably overall not worth your time. Shootout 97. There you go. You get the advertisement for it and a $10 off coupon. Take it to Sears or Funtronics. Valid until May of 97. You go clip this out now and take it to, I think, no Sears stores that exist anymore and see if you can get $10 off NBA Shootout 97. Independence Day. I saw this opening weekend. Movie came out. That would have been summer 96, right? So we're just now getting a game for it almost a year later. I remember this game being playable in full at a kiosk at KB Toys at my mall, and I gave it a shot, and I thought this game sucked. Thought it sucked a lot. It looked kind of cool initially, but once you start playing it and getting up close, like shit in the distance looks kind of all right, but once you get close to stuff, not good at all. Roger reviewed this 5.3. That I think that is very worthy of that. It's a little below halfway. I mean, granted, this is a little tick above, but yeah, not good. Go with Warhawk instead. I want to say it was very repetitive too. It's pretty much the same thing. You're here, blow this up on the ship, blow this up underneath the ship, and maybe fight a few of the smaller saucers. And that was it. Nothing else. I would have to look and see if the last level is kind of inside the alien ship. Kind of you plant the virus and you're escaping, but I don't think anyone bothered getting that far. I think there's actually some cheat codes when we get to that later in this issue. Or that Die Hard Arcade. I wish, because it's just on Saturn, and Dynamite Cop would come out on Dreamcast, that I think was just reskinned from this, and they just called it Dynamite Cop. I wish if this would have come out on PlayStation, I would have bought it. If I would have gotten a Saturn around this time, this is a game I would have gotten because I love Die Hard Arcade in the arcades. 8.2. I think that's a fair score. But this game to me would have had just infinite replay value. It's like any other 2D beat 'em up. Let's say here in the last little bit. Unfortunately, let's see. Most everything about this game works so well that saying the game is too short seems like nitpicking. Unfortunately, it isn't. Experienced gamers can finish Die Hard Arcade in less than 20 minutes, which isn't a lot of time for $50. Although this may work in the arcades to satisfy players with small bankrolls, it can annoy Saturn owners who can play as long as they want. Still, players who liked playing Knights of Virtual Cop will have no problem replaying Die Hard Arcade start to finish. That wouldn't have bothered me, I don't think. Or you wait and just wait for it. Did Saturn have something in similar vein to a greatest hits or a player's choice like N64 had, where it sells 1 million copies and here's the game you can get for a discount? That's what I would have done. I would have just waited it out and got it for cheaper or something. But I probably would have paid $50 for this just because I enjoyed the arcade so much. Jeff Chen, I think, is the new guy they were referring to at the beginning of this. Depth gets a 6. Sound effects 9. I think there's cheat codes for this. I may have already said that about this too, but I think there's some cheat codes. Oh, here's the Vandal Hearts game on PlayStation. A turn-based strategy game wrapped in a neat RPG package. Okay. Gets an 8. All right. I will. This is a game I'll see if I can either emulate, or I assume there's probably no other new way to play this on newer consoles or anything like they've been doing with other stuff, because with it being Konami, maybe. Konami is finally coming around to some of their older IPs and re-releasing those on newer hardware, remastering them, touching them up a little bit. 9.1 for the first game here. I actually got 1 and 2 of the HD remasters of this and played and beat the first one a couple weeks back and had a lot of good time with that. The inventory system for it in the first game is kind of clunky and you got to get used to it. And I've been meaning to jump into the second one, but I'm just kind of letting it simmer for a little bit. But 8.0 and tactical. With player strikes, free agency, and contract disputes, just how bright is the future of sports? Actually, it's ... pretty bright. Hell is this game? Ball Blazer Champions. This seems like, concept-wise, seems pretty interesting. A futuristic sports game created for the Sony PlayStation that's part hockey, part racing, and part insanity. Action-packed real-time 3D gaming experience like no other. Yeah, so it's like Rocket League before Rocket League. Nanotech Warrior. This is for PlayStation. Publishers Virgin. So I bet this doesn't. Oh, 8.3. Kind of surprised because most of the stuff published by Virgin Interactive most of the time didn't do so well. A good case for reinventing the wheel. So is this just pure racing game? Space shooter was once a staple of video game industry. Okay. Inter Nanotech Warrior, one of the most exciting shooters in a long, long time. Okay. The shooters during this time period didn't appeal to me that much. I liked them in the Super Nintendo era a lot, even though it seemed a lot of them were very much alike. And I'm trying to remember if it was Super R Type that I liked the most in the Super Nintendo era in terms of the shooters, or if it was kind of blanking on it. There was another one that I enjoyed quite a bit, but everything else past that would come out seemed kind of lacking. Tecmo's Deception. This is kind of like Resident Evil-esque, if I remember correctly. So tank controls galore. And Tecmo around this time, kind of very hit or miss. Seemed like the NES days and Super Nintendo days were more of their better works. Doom 64. Evil comes to N64, and it's really cool. Douglas Perry reviewed this, gives it an 8.5. Yeah, Doom 64 is all right. It's not the thing when it comes to the Doom franchise. Obviously, Doom 1 and 2, even though they're very similar, are kind of upper echelon for me. Doom 3 is weird in its own way because it was trying something new for the time period it came out. I think Doom 2016, Doom Eternal, and the newer installment that's releasing fairly soon, I believe, are really good. Like Doom 2016 was awesome. That took this in the direction that it needed to go in. And like Doom 64 was okay. It's like if you weren't able to play it on PC, or you didn't play the Saturn or PS1, which I do have the PS1 port of Doom, you got a 64, this is the way to go. 4-player, let's see, though the rumored 4-player deathmatch mode didn't make it into the final product. See, I see that. You compare that with GoldenEye that's going to come out. Anyone that probably bought this, once they got GoldenEye and they could play that with friends and do deathmatch together, they're probably barely touching this game going forward. I think Disruptor here in the alternatives. I think Disruptor was on PS1. I think Disruptor may have been one that I rented, and I enjoyed that quite a bit. I might be totally wrong and misremembering the title of that. There is a first-person shooter game on PS1 that I played that I did enjoy. I'll look it up after we're done. Disruptor. Remind me to remember that. Rage Racer. So I played Ridge Racer. And the cool thing about the Namco games is they had like their older arcade games for load screens. That's fun. I think if you played one of these Namco Racer title games, you kind of played them all. They all kind of play pretty much the same. 7.9. Yeah, despite its superior gameplay, controls, and graphics, Rage Racer is not in the upper echelon of racing games. Instead of more tracks, Namco has chosen to concentrate on the in-game options like ability to create logos and paint schemes. So yeah, they probably just took the thing. The biggest thing with these games was not having a lot of tracks, and they relied a lot, if I'm not mistaken, on mirroring the tracks and just, oh, look, it's this track, but it's mirrored. And fun for a minute, but that wears off quick. What came after Rage Racer? Was it Ridge Racer 4? I only really played the first one. Yeah, there's plenty of other racing games out there that are far better than this series. Command and Conquer World Domination in the box. Saturn and PlayStation ports. I never played Command and Conquer, but I did. Josh, my friend, I think it was Christmas one year, he got Command and Conquer Red Alert for PS1. Watched him play that. That was fun. And I love the cinematics. That was always a big selling point too, was just having the cinematics and what some of those would look like. Granted, some of them look like shit. Command and Conquer games, I think I actually, maybe on Steam, I have maybe Command and Conquer Red Alert remastered, but I haven't haven't installed it and played it. Maybe that's something I can stream down the road just to check it out. At retailers everywhere, call 1-888-VIACOM-1. Realms of the Haunting on PC, so this is not anything. I would have played 1 part Resident Evil plus 1 part Doom equals a surprisingly good adventure. 8.2. Interplay has done its homework and released a game that will not only appeal to adventure game lovers, but also to the horde of now maturing Doom fanatics. Yeah, because you got to think about that too. With Doom coming out, 90, 92, 93, kind of hitting its peak popularity with that first game, like 94. You got to think these gamers that were 12, 13, they're graduating high school, going to college here, may have a computer. If they're really rich, they got a laptop. Yeah, no interest in this, though. I mean, this is fun. I should have been paying more attention to this. So here's the requirements. IBM PC, 16 megabytes of RAM with a 2x CD-ROM drive, Pentium 75 recommended. Oh, man. And to think, like, around this time, like mid-range PCs, it would have been amazing if you had a hard drive that had 500 megabytes of storage. Or no, yeah, no, not megabyte. Maybe I'm getting everything confused. Like I remember like having a hard drive that had a gig on it. Oh man. So yeah, it probably would have been like 500 megabytes storage. I'm trying to remember how much storage space my Acer PC, my first real PC with the hard drive space on that was. Couldn't have been much. Mech Warrior 2, new missions and new look, take mech combat to the next level. PlayStation. These were games I was always intrigued by, but never got around to playing any of them. Because any of the robot combat stuff seemed really fun. I know they still make games maybe it's an offshoot of the Mech Warrior series that's still ongoing, and they do different subsets. Like some of them have stories and some of them don't. I need to play one of these one day. Soviet Strike, save $10 if you go to Sears. I love that there's coupons in here. That's awesome. Here we go. Command and Conquer on Saturn. Knowing is half the battle. Got to get tough, yo Joe. It's an 8.4. So this would have been ports that primarily PC games, and then taking something like this and importing it to console and it being reviewed well is nice to see, because a lot of times it wouldn't be the case. What do they say about it here? In the instruction manual, and if there's one thing that CNC suffers from tremendously, it's the lack of multiplayer feature. Yeah, I mean, that's going to happen. I don't think something like this, if you try to do split screen multiplayer, could really handle it. Though I want to say on PlayStation, maybe it wasn't PlayStation, maybe it was StarCraft 64, I think, maybe had a multiplayer aspect to it. I could be wrong on that, but that's a hard thing to do for console games around this time with a genre like this. Here we go. The newest Star Wars adventures are coming to television, and you can find them on this station. What is it? Rebel Assault 2. Actually, maybe at some point they did a double pack of these. I have one of these games. I think it's Rebel Assault 2 that I have, that I got it at random yard sale. Not long, maybe a year or so removed after this came out, and I was just excited to see a PlayStation game for real cheap at a yard sale. I remember it being all right. Didn't control too well. Because I want to say, yeah, this is the first person game. I think Rebel Assault 2 had, because you kind of see here, kind of on-rail shooter, and I think it had an aspect of you're a stormtrooper and you can like duck behind cover and like jump out and shoot things, but it did not control well at all. Do you remember that? But I thought at the time, I was like, this looks really cool. But it controlled like shit. Save your quarters for the Laundromat Die Hard Arcade. Yeah, fuck. I think I wish I would have had a Saturn at the time just for Die Hard Arcade. Enome PC. Multiple races, loads of mechs, and hijackings make for a good rocking time. 8.0. I mean, it looks pretty great. Yeah, they got MechWarrior 2, 8.3. So I guess you have your what would you rather play kind of thing here going with this. But this game looks great. But PC, obviously we saw MechWarrior 2 on PS1, graphically limited to what it can do compared to having something on the PC like this. But also at the time, yeah, you can look at the requirements on these boxes and then kind of look at what you have, or be like me and be dumb and just be like, I got a computer, and then buy the game and then have to run it with low graphic settings. But you're just like, I can play the game. I learned a lot around that time period too, because Josh was very much into computer gaming. So the installation process with PC games back then, especially if you had to run the games in DOS, which most of the time you did, could be a little convoluted. And he taught me a lot about installing PC games. And not only that, but us like cracking games and being able to share games if they weren't the shareware titles. VR Baseball 97. I rented this, played it. This game sucks. Not a good baseball game. I mean, just even graphically back then compared to some of the other stuff that was out, not great. And I remember the pitching mechanic. There we go. It had like this. You kind of see it here, if I'm not mistaken. It had this for its pitching mini game, I guess if you want to call it. And I remember it not being very responsive at all. But yeah, this VR Baseball, no thank you. Here's the sports section. I know most people that are into video games, a good portion of them not into sports titles. But here's our spring training roundup. So here's your multitude of baseball games. Grand Slam, not good. MLB Pennant Race, don't think I played this one. Bottom of the ninth. I would have to look more than a screenshot to remember if I played that. Just looking at that doesn't look, but that's kind of interesting. You have a win mechanic there in the corner. It seems a little unnecessary. But Triple Play 97 I did play. That's a good game. Hardball 6 I did not. 3D Baseball 97, not a good game. This is just upcoming. So the SNES version looks smooth. Looked amazing for... I'm looking down here. The Super Nintendo version looked amazing for a 16-bit game, and it played smooth as well. So this is a screenshot of not the first Ken Griffey game, which is the best baseball game of all time, but this is from Winning Run. And I got this when it came out, and I played it, and I kind of hated it at first, and then I got used to it. And then once I got used to it, I'm like, it's not great, but it's not terrible. So I never played Ken Griffey on N64. I remember it not looking that great. World Series baseball games, I played, I think it may have been the first one on Genesis. And then maybe rented the 32X version and took it to my friend Josh's house to play. But World Series baseball looked amazing at the time and played pretty well too. All-Star Baseball 97. I didn't play any of these until the N64 days, and I think it was All-Star Baseball 98 and Acclaim Sports for N64 at the time. Graphically, that stuff looked outstanding. So All-Star Baseball, I played. Quarterback Club, I played shit out of those and had a lot of fun with them. I'm sure looking back with today's eyes and looking back at the graphics now, they probably don't hold up at all. MVP Baseball 97, VR Baseball 97, Triple Play 98. Triple Play 98 steps it up from Triple Play 97, and played this, and I liked Triple Play a lot. I think this series would turn, since it's EA, would turn into MVP Baseball, and MVP Baseball 2005 is where it's at. I love that game. It stands out to a lot of people as being one of the best baseball games ever made, aside from King Griffey Jr. Presents Major League Baseball on Super Nintendo. Yeah, remember that screen quite a bit. Yeah, good game. Really good baseball game. All-Star Baseball 97 featuring Frank Thomas. God, maybe my cousin had this one too. Maybe he got this one after Big Hurt Baseball. I can't remember the order. Can't remember if Big Hurt came out before or after this. But he had both of them. And he played them a lot. I guess he liked them. Maybe he just only played them because that's what he had. But yeah, VR Baseball sucks. FIFA. James, you'll have to chime in on this one if you played the FIFA games back then. I'm not a big football/soccer fan. I like Ted Lasso a lot. I thought that was a lovely, lovely show, but could never really get into the video games of this. Hockey was where it was at for me in this time period if I was going to play a game in similar vein. It also helped I was watching hockey at the time, too. I don't think, aside from World Cup, because Major League Soccer, I don't even... Maybe it's in its infancy at this point. I want to say maybe it was 96 when that league was founded. But soccer, football wasn't big around the time. It was just like World Cup. And it's like, oh, yeah, you go USA. And then Brazil would kill everybody. And then no one would care again. Atomic Bomberman. This is Bomberman on PC, which I imagine was awesome. I know that Saturn had where you could play 16 players, if I'm not mistaken. And the way that they had it set up, you could go up to 16. So that's awesome. I love me some Bomberman. There's nothing better than some multiplayer Bomberman. What do we got here? Tiger Shark from GT Interactive. Ultimate War Machine, come hell and high water. Yeah. Would have had zero interest in that. Then it kind of gives you... Yeah, here we go. Cruising USA in 64, 3.1. Deservedly so. Absolutely. So this is what you would get. Some of the highlights from previous issues. Let's see what else kind of sticks out to us there. Mario Kart 64 gets an 8.1. I know a lot of people prefer Diddy Kong Racing over Mario Kart. I don't really like Mario Kart 64. I think it's one of the weaker Mario Kart entries. But I say that as someone that loves Mario Kart Double Dash on GameCube, and people apparently really fucking hate that one. I would say the newest installation of Mario Kart 8 on Switch, is the peak. And I'm curious what this new one on Switch 2 is going to be like, especially with the free roaming aspect and all that stuff. So we'll see how that goes. Jet Moto, a game that I got for my birthday in 1997. It's an 8.4. I really like Jet Moto a lot. I never played Jet Moto 2. Graphically, it looked better. I'm sure Jet Moto doesn't play well by today's standards, but for the time, really, really liked it. What else we got? Contra, Legacy of War on PlayStation 6.5. Yeah, Contra really started to struggle. Cool Borders. I think Cool Borders 2 is where people prefer this series. I did not play Cool Borders. I think the little kids aspect of it kind of turned me off. What we got? Daytona USA on Saturn, 7.4. Diablo on PC, 8.8. Andretti Racing, 8.5. Andretti Racing is a good racing game. Published by EA. My friend Josh and I would play that game when it had a lot of funny finishes to that racing one-on-one. Too Extreme, 5.9. That deserves it. I only played it on the demo disc that came with my PlayStation. And I would play it every so often because I would do the rollerblading racing part because I really like skitching on Sega Genesis, which I had a hand-me-down Genesis from Josh. He just let me have it because I think at that point he had N64 PlayStation, but I unfortunately, since that was a hand-me-down, not something I got from my parents, ended up selling that in a yard sale a couple years later. But Skitchin was a game I rented a lot and liked because I was big into Road Rash, the combat racing games like that. I enjoyed quite a bit. Mortal Kombat Trilogy on N64, 7.7. Mortal Kombat games. Mortal Kombat 4, I remember very much looking forward to and renting that on N64, playing that when it was brand new and thought it looked like really, really awesome. And obviously those don't hold up. Mortal Kombat 4 and then, what is it, Deadly Alliance and Armageddon. I think if I went back and played those, I prefer the minigame stuff that they had in it because they had like chess and like a puzzle fighter knockoff. I think they call it. What did they call it? All the minigame stuff in those were fun, but just the actual one-on-one fighting stuff in it, not as good. I definitely prefer your original Mortal Kombat 1 through 3, Ultimate Editions, etc., etc. But the newer iterations, Mortal Kombat 9, I really liked, and I've only dabbled in Mortal Kombat 10 and 11, and I haven't played Mortal Kombat 1. Kind of seems like that's starting to jump the shark again, so they might need to go back to the drawing board after this one to figure out something, or just let the property rest for a little bit of time. I think we got some more reviews here. Spotlight on Twisted Metal 2. Yes, they gave it an 8.2. I love Twisted Metal. The first game, I mean, I guess all of them kind of clunky in its controls, especially that first game. 2 is an improvement, but 2 I played the absolute shit out of. Obviously, Twisted Metal Black on PS2 is the best one. I played a little bit of 3, and at that point, the developer moved to 989 Studios, and they're just the series lost its touch, both gameplay wise and the presentation as a whole. I wish we could either get a remaster of 1 and 2 or get a new Twisted Metal that's not how it was with the one that came out in 2013, because that was just, I'm like, we only have, was it Sweet Tooth, was it Shadow, and then another character? So you were like part of a gang affiliated with that character and that car, and I like, just give me what we've had for the series prior. It's a competition. You get to pick whoever, and then you're granted, Calypso grants you a wish and fucks you over on it. Like, there's nothing wrong with that formula to me. Motor Tune Grand Prix gets an 8.1. That's a game that I rented, and that's a great racing game. I really enjoyed. I think I rented that a couple times. The graphics on it were fun. I would have to watch gameplay of it now just to see if it still holds up as what I remember, but I had a lot of fun with it. Puzzle Fighter, can't go wrong with some Puzzle Fighter. Reloaded is something you get advertisements for a lot in game magazines, 5.1, so that's probably why they're advertising it a lot up to its release. Shadows of the Empire, close to, if not one of N64 launch titles, 6.7, that seemed kind of fair. Sonic 3D Blast, not mistaken, the only Sonic game, more or less, to come out on Saturn, which is mind-blowing to think about, that they didn't do more Sonic stuff on the Saturn. Spot Goes to Hollywood, like, still trying to make 7-Up Spot happen, make it a thing in the video game world, even in 1997. Wipeouts was, I enjoyed playing that on PS1. Virtual Fighter Kids, because why not? Virtual Cop 2 gets 7.8. Tomb Raider gets 9.5. So issue 92 would have been 5. Yeah, so that would have come out holiday 96. I guess that's a game. If I remember correctly, that's a game that I saved up allowance and then just bought. I think that was one of those titles. This wasn't a Christmas gift. Tobal #1. I never understood the hype of that. Because I think it was is it Tobal #2 they had a demo for? No, Tobal 2 came out and there was a demo for Final Fantasy 7 on it, I think. Or maybe it was Tobal #1 that had a demo for Final Fantasy 7 on it. Somewhere around there. Terminator Skynet on PC gets 8.9. Interesting. This is a contest, so you get your contest questions over here. So you can get some Super Nintendo games, some mystery games, Capcom Snowboard, PC games, Mega Man Resin Kit, the Mega Pack. So decent little prizes in there. I think I probably would have went with mystery games here. Maybe Super Nintendo games. Though at the time, Super Nintendo I would dabble in every now and again if I was feeling nostalgic at the time. But I'm kind of curious. Did any of you during this time period when you're playing PS1, N64, Saturn, are you going back and playing NES and Super Nintendo stuff? Or are you kind of in that mindset of those are older games? This stuff looks way better. Like I was being a big idiot. Imagine Games Network later become IGN. So here's the events. If you're on the net, Next Generation. So you can go there. Ultra Gameplay. See, that is odd as it was, getting a subscription to this. I think I very rarely actually went to their website. It's kind of dumb of me. Yes. N64.com, which would later become, or maybe a branch off of IGN64.com. And I would go to that website a lot because WCW Revenge was going to come out and we had to see what characters are going to be in it and see little short videos of gameplay. We would go to the local library and do that. So this would have been close to around this time because I didn't quite have internet yet in our house. Here's the cheat codes, all access. So yeah, this is Die Hard Trilogy, not Die Hard Arcade. So Die Hard Trilogy came out on PlayStation. I've heard good stuff about this one too. Unfortunately, never got around to playing it. But it seems okay. But in my mind, I saw this. I'm like, it's not Die Hard Arcade. It looked inferior to me. But there's for those of you, if you want some cheat codes for that, there you go. Mech Warrior 2 cheat codes. Game Day 97. We did use these. See if I can remember which ones we used. I want to say we used Bazooka for a strong passing arm. Let's look down here. Maybe we did no injuries. We did improved receivers. So it's pretty much just they catch more or less every time. And we would win games like 80-something to nothing. It's good times. Juice for Super Speed Burst, which I know why they use that code. And I did watch the Naked Gun teaser trailer, and that little end stinger part, pretty funny. So I think the mindset for that is in the right place. So I really hope it turns out good because I think Liam Neeson he can pull it off. Yeah, codes for Rage Racer. So that's kind of the fun thing about this is you get codes for games that were reviewed in this issue. So if you were intrigued enough by getting a good score and you go get the game, you got some cheat codes there. Dark Forces, get some codes there, some level skip stuff. NBA Live 97. Only played NBA Live 95 on Super Nintendo was my big go-to NBA Live game. I don't think I played another one for quite some time because it ended up being inferior to all the other NBA games that were coming out. Master of Orion 2, Sonic 3D Blast, Virtual On, Area 51 on PlayStation and Saturn. I guess there wouldn't be much difference there. Played it in arcade. Had no interest in playing the console port of that. Killer Instinct Gold. I would only play this game at friends' houses. Killer Instinct was fun. Not something I would play single player, but playing against friends. Playing against friends was cool. What else we got? Shadows of the Empire. Just see the ending. Get an advertisement here for PlayStation Power. So I guess this is about to launch, or would launch in December. Oh no, launched in December of '96. So yeah, I guess it's just a dedicated PlayStation site. Diablo, get some tips. So not much cheat codes, but just some tips. And then you can get a little walkthrough here for MechWarrior 2. Network connection. Oh man. We have some letters here. I don't know if we'll read a couple, I guess. Let's see. Got it backwards. Hey, Ultra Game players, I got a few questions for you. When is Tecmo Bowl coming for N64? Will they make a Beavis and Butthead game for N64? And number 3, is Bill drunk because he's a weirdo? So Bill responds, hey, Josh, you sick little rat bat. Oh. Anyway, let's answer your questions. Okay, first, all of us here at UGP are praying the Tecmo Bowl doesn't make it to the N64. Why? Because that will make you cry. Secondly, no, they're not going to make a Beavis and Butthead game for N64 because that would make you happy. Finally, I'm not drunk because I'm a weirdo. I'm a weirdo, so I can show up at your house wearing nothing but a paper bag on my head, carrying a big, sharp, bloody axe, and now I have your address. So I always loved reading the letters, and that's why I like the crew so much, is because they just had this weird sense of humor to them, and it made it entertaining to read these. So, yeah, plug in and meet the team. Chris, Basketball 91, Bill. Hey, there's no R in July. Mike, I'm the soccer king. And Roger, where's the teriyaki sauce? Let's many more. Yeah, got a few more letters here. And they would always do this too, where just kind of show stuff, I think, in relation to the questions. So Bill was always the one that I always liked reading more of. I always liked his responses. So let's just read all the ones that Bill responds to. This one's titled Bad Kitty. I have a problem I hope Bill can help me with. I picked up a stray cat and named it Shang Tsung. And after I named him that, I caught him stealing the souls of mice, squirrels, and birds he catches. I think it's cool, but he leaves the shrouded bodies withering away on the front step. He put a spell on the TV. He tells me he meets with Shao Kahn. When he steps through the screen, he says that he and Khan shall rule Earth forever. I have just a few questions. Is my cat really possessed? Can I watch TV normally? And can I end his flaming skull hairballs? Bill, gee, Aaron, so this is how you pass time in slow Ohio. Don't worry about the cat. Sure, he's possessed, but what is it nowadays? There's no such thing as normal TV watching, so I can't help you there. But what's the big deal with the hairballs? My cat, Genghis, makes the best. They're delicious with a hot Chinese mustard sauce or in a bowl with milk. So, yeah, I like the weird responses that we get from everybody. Let's see. I'm okay, you're nuts. Hey, Bill, how you doing? P.S., how are you feeling? This comes from Richard in Chicago. Bill, I'll get right to your question, Richard. I'm doing okay. I'm working on network and thinking ahead of tonight's band practice, which should be fun because when we're not rehearsing, we're playing Super Bomberman 2. Now for your second question. Nerves in the finger send impulses to the brain where they are interpreted as sensations. The brain then sends a feedback signal back to the ... Yeah, it just the good sarcastic responses. They also, too, would put in here, ask the industry stuff. So just here, dear Sega, that you would get. This the question. Yeah, so you get public relations Sega of America down there. So, yeah, I think that's pretty cool. And then Bill would have his own little thing called the Jaded Gamer, which kind of ahead of its time when you think about it. In this day and age, you get more of I think there's the video game guy, Angry Joe. Of course, you get the Angry Video Game Nerd. Ahead of his time, Bill was. I must get hundreds of letters every week asking me about RPGs, and I never answer them because I don't play the damn things. Why? Maybe if I describe a day in my life like an RPG, you'll understand. Let's go. It's a Saturday, so my quest on this day is to bring the sacred foaming amber liquid to the place of cold freshness. I leap from my bed and begin girding my loins for the journey when suddenly I'm confronted by the hairball spitting Genghis cat. What dost thou want, saith I? Feed me, or thy ankles will surely bite, replieth Genghis. So my quest is interrupted as I feed the heinous beast. As I head towards the drawbridge, 10 steps away from the Genghis Slayer, my quest is again interrupted by the magical chimes of the mystical Togfar. What dost thou want, asked I. The magic lake of your backyard doth overflow in my castle, saith the nice neighbor. Oh yeah, he just goes on. Let's kind of catch the end of it. Hey buddy, got another one of those cold ones for thirsty neighbor. Now you see why I don't play RPGs. So they had fun with it. I love the personalities in the magazine. There's Roger. I always thought Roger was a dick. Just very condescending. You would see in the videos when he's talking about stuff or whatever. He just always seemed like an asshole. Gosh, there's way more letters here. I'll read this last one from Bill. So what does it say? Fan site of the month. Oh, so they would plug fan sites in here too, because early days of the internet would be a good way to tell people where to go for other stuff. That's interesting. I forgot that they did that because I never paid much attention to these because I didn't have constant internet access at the time. If the Humor and Readers Network doesn't come back, I might have one of those spells again. It might just happen. I'm liable to send Bill some cheese. So this is from Danny Boom Bostic. Hey, Danny, something is starting to stink around here, and I think it's your letter. That's right, folks. The unthinkable has happened again. Mr. Bostic's letter contained a smelly, greasy, dried-out piece of what was once dairy product. Well, Danny, I want you to look back in your collection of game players and find the August 95 issue. Then I want you to find page 9, see the picture of me there. Well, that finger gesture is just for you. Now I have to go put your full address on the internet so all my pals can start sending you cheese and milk and butter and sour cream. So at the time, August 95, game players, as we see here, got to see when they put the Ultra on there and kind of why they did, really. America's lowest game prices, so you would get video game discounters, much like you would in toy magazines. They give you a list, like Tyler did the one time to get some Master Universe figures. Give you here your PlayStation accessories, Saturn accessories. I think on the next page, maybe there's games. Yeah, there you go. So you just call and get used games. And of course, you got new games, but then they got used. Wipeout for 17. That's not bad at all. Alien Trilogy for 22. It's kind of the highest price game we have here. Yeah, 40s range. So that's not bad at all. Yeah, I guess Super Nintendo is going to be the more expensive stuff. So you guys, that's just Super Nintendo with the game. My bad. Yeah, not bad prices at all for this. Even got some 3DO and Atari Jaguar on there. Remember those? Those things really fell off. Once PlayStation hit, just the marketplace percentage. It's like Saturn, Nintendo, like Sega, Nintendo still hanging in there, but 3DO, Jaguar had no chance. No chance at all. Next month, Sports Spectacular. Plus, don't miss the second part of Mech Warrior 2 Tips, along with the usual assortment of great stuff. And then we get an advertisement for Game Boy Pocket. Nintendo was doing some weird stuff with their advertising back then. Not with just their commercials, but in print. So Game Boy Pocket, I never owned a Game Boy Pocket, just had an original Game Boy. So when it came to Pocket and Game Boy Color, didn't get any of that stuff. Didn't get a Game Boy Advance when that was out either. I didn't get another Nintendo handhelds until the DS. And even then, I think it was the DS Lite, maybe. So I didn't own another handheld for quite some time. Psychic Force, mind-blowing mid-air 3D fighting game from Acclaim. Would have had no. This must have been sort of their answer to the Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z games at the time, because it plays very similar in that regard. I think I never played any of those either. Wasn't a big anime guy around this time. Still, like, I dabble, but I'm very selective, and I think I've only watched a couple episodes of Dragon Ball Z. So apologies out there to all the anime fans. This is the exclusive that would come with the magazine if you subscribed. This was default. Obviously, you pay more to get the disc, and they would have the backwards message here. More Ninja Madness. There wasn't a lot to these newsletters. It was pretty much, it's pretty much just front and back. Just this and this. And some of them were better than others. Like one of them had a multi-issue running gag. But yeah, you just get like some Photoshop stuff. Usually it's just making fun of the editor at the time. So, and there we go. Wow. Voice is a little wrecked after going through that. And I'm kind of surprised I was able to do it in this amount of time. I thought it would take me just a smidge longer than it did. Let's take a look at just a couple of the comments that we got here. This comes from Mike Lomax. I Had Rebellion was called Supremacy in the UK. I was actually having a conversation with Mr. James Talk about a lot of the different names that were used. Like, we would get this called here in the States, and you guys would get it over there, and it'd be called something else entirely, for better or worse. Usually the name that we would get here in the States sucked. It made no sense. All the home versions of Cruising USA were so bad. They were. My 1997 PC computer had such a small hard drive that I had to use zip disks. Yeah, I remember getting a zip drive in 1999 or 2000, and that's where I would save a lot of my AutoCAD projects, because I was taking that in school at the time. So I would save it on there, come home. I had AutoCAD program on my computer. Don't worry about how we obtained it. And yeah, I would work on that there. But yeah, the zip drive was a lifesaver in terms of the space for things. Had Command and Conquer 64. It was fun, but even more fun with the Game Shark, because I could screw with the enemy so much. Yeah, the Game Shark was awesome. I had a Game Shark for PS1 and N64, and those were a blast to use. Actually, lots of fond memories of using the Game Shark code for Final Fantasy VII to level up faster, so you get to level 99 quicker, and you're obliterating anything that you come across. So that was nice to do. But yeah, before my voice totally goes out, because that was a lot of talking for 2 hours, I will go ahead and wrap this up. I actually, while I was doing that, would have had me covered, though, so it's probably best I didn't use that. Let's put that up there. If you haven't subscribed to the Dump In channel, please do so. SpinnerX here, moving from the Fans Power channel over here, so any of the comic book stuff with the Spinner Rack will be here on the Dump In. I plan on doing some video game streams. I think I'll probably dabble some, maybe some Marvel Rivals on PS5. You won't see my face, but you'll hear my voice, and you will see some gameplay there. I've just been kind of putting that off because one of our dogs kind of has, he kind of gets allergies, and with it being spring and pollen picking up, kind of wreaked havoc on his breathing. So he had been coughing quite a bit, but that has since kind of tempered down more. He's had issues since we got him, because long story short, the people who were taking care of him, or who had found him from just roaming around wherever he was, brought him in, didn't do the proper steps to make sure they didn't have heartworms and everything. It turns out he did have heartworms, and that was weighing heavy on him, so it caused him to hack and cough quite a bit. And we've pretty much gotten that under control, but it does have its flare-ups, especially once spring comes around and the pollen kicks in. So that's mostly subsided now. So I'll try to stream some PS5, primarily Marvel Rivals, just because that's a good pick up and play for an hour, play some matches, and be done with it. But I would also like to get back into playing some emulated stuff here on the PC, maybe dabble in some of the PS1 stuff that I was talking about. We can go back and see graphically and gameplay how that stuff holds up, or just check out new things that I didn't get to try, the stuff that I saw here in this magazine that I wish I would have given a chance 28 years ago. We're getting old, people. But yes, subscribe, like this video if you haven't done so already, and leave a comment down below if any of those games fascinated you, or you own them and you have an opinion about them, that's something that I didn't elaborate more on. Give me your review, however long you want to make it. If you want to add way different subsections and then divide by 23 and give me a final score, feel free to do so. But I hope you enjoyed this, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks to everyone here that joined me live for this, and thank you for checking it out after the fact. I got to scroll down now, do the thanks for watching thing. Appreciate you guys. See you soon.